Welcome to Morning Markets. Today is Tuesday, September the 9th. And last night I dropped a market update, which I want to go over quickly. So I talked about how Bitcoin is continuing to lag while gold rips to new highs. And you're seeing alts like Solana, Hype, and the others index, which is everything outside the top 10. They are above their 50-day EMA with green 12 and 21-day EMA bands. So if you look at Sol, above its 50-day EMA, that's the purple line, 12 and 21 bands are green in bullish order. You look at Hype, same, above its 50 EMA, 12 and 21 bands are green in bullish order, pushing up nicely. And you see the others index, the same, 12 and 21 bands green above its 50 EMA, whereas Bitcoin was finding resistance at its 50 EMA, which was the level I mentioned it needs to flip yesterday in morning markets. We need to get those 12 and 21 bands green to have, some sort of sustainable rally on Bitcoin to build a base. And that's what I started to talk about here. So if we flick to the charts today, well, you've seen a beautiful move on Hype this morning, breaking out to new all-time highs in price discovery right off the daily open. So playing out very nicely, seeing those altcoins I mentioned continue to outperform. Seeing Solana attempt to make a new daily high here. And of course, the others index, so your gauge for altcoins outside the top 10, having a nice move up into resistance so far, but still positive structure, especially when you compare it to Bitcoin. Whereas you can see Bitcoin here, bands are red, below that 50 EMA. So that's what we really need to flip here. We need to build some higher high and higher low bullish structure, as I mentioned in last night's analysis and in morning markets. Building those higher highs and higher lows going into the Fed meeting is what you want to see for a sustainable rally. That's going to build a base on Bitcoin. And that's what is going to be most bullish for your altcoins. If Bitcoin can reclaim the 50 EMA, reclaim those 12 and 21 EMA bands, reclaim the value area low, well, that's going to set up your strong altcoins like Hype that I mentioned last night, like Sol, to continue ripping higher because they've got the best setups right now. So that's what you want to look out for, because as I said last night, if Bitcoin's going to reject at this 50 EMA, then you're probably going to see these altcoins lose steam as Bitcoin's not showing demand. It's not building that base, which gives you your Goldilocks setup for altcoins. You want Bitcoin to be strong, basing, building positive structure when altcoins are ripping, because that then allows both Bitcoin to go higher, but altcoins to rip higher even more. Whereas if Bitcoin rejects, then it turns into just a musical chairs, rotations of liquidity between altcoins, and eventually it all will flush out. That's just how cycles move, and you get some sort of dip here. But I don't think that's most likely to happen. Obviously, watch out for both scenarios. But if we do start to flip last week's high, we do start to make our way towards the value area low on Bitcoin here, well, that's going to set up some really nice rallies on altcoins as it's showing strength. So watch out for that. Obviously, it's not guaranteed. We've got PPI, we've got CPI inflation data this week. There is enough of a catalyst there to have Bitcoin reject last week's high and flush back down to here, in which you will see your altcoins pull back as Bitcoin's then not holding up and allowing them to run. But if we do start reclaiming levels, I think altcoins are really going to offer your best long trades. Obviously, we got trade of the weeks on Bitcoin here is the test of that value area low and reclaiming it to move up into the range. However, as I said last night, I think there's some really nice setups on the likes of Hype, on the likes of Sol. So look at something like Hyperliquid here. Again, this is an altcoin which I've been mentioning to you guys for absolutely months now. It's the best altcoin chart. I mean, find me a better chart. I don't think you can, unless it's some sort of micro cap, because there's really not many altcoins breaking out into price discovery after building such a nice consolidation base here. And I've been mentioning Hype all the way back here in June, talking about how it's the only altcoin at all-time highs, and the charts never lie. It's showing strength, and then the news comes out later. What have we been seeing? Well, you're seeing Circle, the board, USDC. They are providing liquidity for Hyperliquid, which is a DEX. And Hyperliquid is really the best DEX out there. It's probably one of the only altcoins with a good story, a good narrative, and that's why the charts have been so good for so long. And you're really seeing now this start to play out as Hypes had, the best marketing. You had that whole James Wynn guy, which was a pure marketing stunt, got everyone excited. You got USDC now giving the green light. The board said they really like this DEX, which they've never said about any other DEX. You've got many others, DYDX, GMX. They were all huge DEXs that have slowly started to lose and fall behind, whereas Hype has been growing and growing and growing. So got a good narrative behind it. That's why the chart, as I said, been mentioning for weeks now, months even, that was looking super strong. Price never lies, then well, now it's trying to make a move. So you saw this 2024 all-time high pivot, provided support, $40 level once reclaimed, led to Hype moving higher. So it likes these round numbers, and you've got $40 and $50 round number, and we've now broken out obviously above $50. And what you've had here is similar to Sol. You had a high, then another high, and another high, so almost a triple top, which then got invalidated. You get traders, they're trying to chase the breakout, they try to chase the breakout again, they try to chase the breakout again, and eventually one of the breakouts sticks. You're not always all going to fail, and this is probably the best chance on Hype for this breakout to stick, especially, as I said, if Bitcoin can start reclaiming some levels, which I think it has a good chance to do. So then from there, what you're really looking for is, obviously, you want to see a nice daily close today, a nice full candle above 52, so yesterday's wick. Make sure it actually does close above these highs, which I think it should. And then from there, obviously, if you're not already in on the daily, anywhere in this consolidation, you want to just play momentum here, and that's why I'm going to be looking for trades. 4 hour, you can take a look at this. Okay, bands not being respected, they've not been tested yet. Go down to a lower time frame. Look at the 1 hour bands. Okay, now I can see they have been tested and held as support at that $50 level. So 2 confluences there. So now all I'm really looking for here is potentially for Hype to hold these 12 and 21 EMA bands, and that will set up what could be a nice trade on Hype. And you've got this impulse candle here. There's a gap. You want to see this level hold, and that can offer some really nice risk to reward setups if we are going to hold this H1 trend the whole way up on Hype. And I see it's already starting to dip into these bands now, so could be setting up the green light for a trade very soon for me today. Because if it is going to have momentum, if Hype is going to go to $60, which I think it very much can, I think that is the kind of short-term trade. As a day trader, it's trading Hype from 50 towards that $60 mark, trying to get in on any of this trend. Then these H1 bands can hold as your fast trend. That is your slow momentum. We're already seeing the 15-minute bands are not being respected, so not really interested in that. But as you can see, when the 15-minute bands get disrespected, they're red over here, it found support right here at its H1 EMA bands instead. So that's what I'm looking for on Hype. I think this gap should hold. We shouldn't see it retrace that gap. If we do, then you're looking at something like the 4 hour, which wouldn't be ideal, as it would be retracing this entire impulse candle, which would actually be a sign that Hype probably needs to actually just consolidate above this $50 round level, and maybe you then get in on these bands there as they travel up on a deeper pullback. and that would probably be confluence with Bitcoin rejecting its own weekly high and, as I said, not reclaiming the levels and actually falling back down as we head into the FOMC meeting, in which you'll get this path. But if Bitcoin, if it can rally above, as I said, build that higher high and higher low structure, however it forms, well, I think that sets up for these H1 EMA bands to set up some decent trades on hype as we just try to capture the meat of the move towards that $60 target. So that's really what I am looking at in terms of hype. Obviously, we've got Solana too, which has been showing strength. So just to take a quick look at the Sol chart, what are we seeing here? So, as mentioned in this morning's video, daily 12 and 21 EMA bands, they have been your trend support. They have now produced a new high on Sol over here. And you want to see Sol actually close today above that high. And then you can look to your lower timeframes for momentum trades. So very simple. You want to see Solana close today above this high and actually break out here. And if you get that daily close above this level, well, then again, you want to look for what is the trend support that's holding. You look at the 1 hour, not really being respected. Look at something like the 4 hour. You have a nice touch over here, which shows respect. So if we can close the daily above this level and actually confirm a breakout, well, that potentially sets up a move where on any dip, any consolidation over here, which is obviously your ideal scenario, you can then look for long trades on those H4 bands as your setup, targeting something like 240 to 250. They're the kind of levels I'm looking at on Solana. So we mark them out. Also got that previous all-time high around 260. I think these are the overall targets for Solana if we are going to break out, because this is where you'll start to find some resistance, backtesting this consolidation, which ended up being distribution on a couple occasions. So those are the targets there on Solana. Of course, if Bitcoin does reclaim its levels and build a solid base, that's going to confluence with Solana having a nice daily breakout. If Bitcoin does reject and have a deeper dip and is unable to reclaim these levels, and you actually see 50 EMA hold as resistance, well, this period is going to lead to some immediate flushes on all coins where you probably then don't get a daily breakout confirmation on Solana, and maybe we need to continue consolidating again and again. You just look back to your slower trend support, which is on the daily, these 12 and 21 bands, and you look for that to hold. If that fails, then you look to something like your 50 EMA. And really, as I mentioned, anything above the yearly open is still bullish on Solana. Shouldn't go below there, in my opinion, as we've had enough fake outs below. So really just need to see, is this breakout going to hold, or are we going to set up yet another trap on Solana where we just get everyone excited, breakout buyers, and then flush them into the daily bands as support and then push higher? Or is this going to be the breakout that finally sticks? We'll see later on and have a much better idea after today's daily close. So that's what I'm waiting for. Daily close on Solana, and then I'm going to follow the trend bands on the H4, which seem to be the most likely to be respected here. So Sol slightly weaker than hype. Hype probably got a little bit more strength. As I mentioned, hype already has marked up pretty significantly on the H4. That's why on hype I'm looking at an even faster trend support, the H1, and really just looking for those targets of $60 day trading up to there, trying to capture those low time frame moves. Not interested in being an investor in hype over here. even though it has good, really good prospects and is seemingly getting a pretty nice narrative behind it right now, as it's one of the best performing dexes. And you've got things like the EU, they're looking to ban USDT perpetual futures and really restrict perpetual futures trading on all of the exchanges with these new MiCA regulations. So perhaps something like hype is the future for a lot of traders, and that is potentially why you're actually seeing this chart be the best chart in crypto. And you are, as I said, you're coming off this nice base, this lovely 100-day consolidation. So much like gold, which following that green path I mentioned quite some time ago, is also coming off its own 90-day consolidation. Obviously, hype is nothing like gold, but I'm just saying how cause and effect, when you build a base, you build that accumulation, you build that energy. When the energy gets released, it typically leads to a nice rally. I wouldn't obviously expect hype to just absolutely collapse here, barring some full breakdown on Bitcoin, which could happen. Maybe we make new lows on Bitcoin and you get obviously some volatility around CPI, but it wouldn't be my base case. We've got to lose 110 before we can even consider that. So 110K is a very important level on dips for Bitcoin. It's been a resistance level which has been respected here, respected here, respected here, and even a little bit of support there, a little bit of support here. You can see time and time again, even earlier in the year, this was where the high came up to, 110K. So that's the level you don't want to see lose if we do go for the dip scenario as opposed to reclaiming levels. So that is what I am looking at. Look at something like Total 3. So this is your altcoin index excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. Actually go to this chart that excludes stable coins, gives you a little bit better of a view. We're making our ways to the highs now. You've got this compression pattern, which could lead to actually a breakout in the coming days if we can push above it and get above this level over here, which again is going to be confluence with Bitcoin, likely building that base, building positive structure. So that's what I'm looking for. Altcoins seem to be the ones that want to run and actually target some of these higher levels. You've had such a long consolidation. It should really break out and run away here. We shouldn't hang about for too much longer. So really got an eye on these setups and looking to trade that low time frame momentum on those strong outperforming coins, because they're the ones with the most momentum. And as I mentioned for quite a while now, this February 3rd liquidation day, key level, remaining above it is super important as it's been resistance, led to chop here, but as long as we're above it, bulls have momentum to start targeting towards that May 2024 high. So again, just looking for really a close above here and above the initial fake out level would be a good start as well. So all eyes on these altcoin charts to see if we can break out from this compression pattern to set up some really nice rallies this week as we head into FOMC next week. So it really should be time for them to go. So that's why that is really my main focus and why I dropped that update last night, because I saw that sign that altcoins were having the best setups and really just need Bitcoin to hold up, as I kept mentioning throughout today. So that's what I'm looking at. Looking at gold quickly. So if we go to gold futures, as I mentioned in morning's video, I want to see dips into this order block hold, and we've actually seen this blue box here hold pretty nicely on the dip, and we produce new highs now. So gold's continuing higher. As I said, it had a lovely weekly close, so it was very likely for gold to continue higher, and it's just this 50 EMA band on the 1 hour that you're looking for dips on to get long on for support. When it comes to the S&P futures, mentioned this daily candle, whatever way this breaks is probably going to dictate the next move. So currently consolidating inside, probably waiting for that inflation data to make a move one way or the other. So that is what I'm looking at. That's the morning market update. I'll see you guys tomorrow.